Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to start the next chapter of Lakshmikant, that is Parliament. This Parliament is very important regarding both the prelims and also the mains point of view. So please focus here. So if you see this Parliament, it is a big chapter. We are not going to discuss this Parliament in one lecture. We are going to divide this Parliament into the different parts and we are going to discuss each of them because it is very important regarding both the prelims and the mains. First, let us see the introduction before getting into the topic. So if you see the articles, mainly from Article 79 to Article 122 of the Indian Constitution, mainly present in the Part 5 of the Constitution that talks about the Parliament. So first let us see the Article 79. So what it is talking about. So if you see the Article 79, it says that there shall be Parliament for the Union and which shall consist of the President and the two houses. And what are those two houses? Those two houses are the Council of the States and the next one is House of People. So what is this Article 79 talking about? It is talking about Parliament at the center or Union, which contains three important components. They contain, the first one is President of India and next one is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Here Lok Sabha is also called as House of the People and the Rajya Sabha is also called as a Council of States. This is about Article 79. So in this lecture, we are going to see the important articles which are related to the Parliament. And first of all, let us see what are the functions of the Parliament. These functions is important regarding the mains point of view. So the first important function is Supreme Legislative Institution. Why Parliament is called as Supreme Legislative? So if you see, when you are talking about the Schedule 7 of Indian Constitution, it have mainly three lists. That is List 1, List 2 and List 3. And List 1 talks about the Union list, List 2 talks about the State list and List 3 talks about the concurrent list. So when you are talking about the List 1, that is Union list, who have the power to make the laws under the subjects which are listed under List 1? That is the Parliament. Parliament have the exclusive power to make any laws regarding the subjects which comes under the Union list. For example, like subjects like banking, insurance, defense, atomic energy, etc. These all are the important subjects which comes under the Union list. So when we are talking about the Union list, Parliament have the exclusive power to make the laws under the Union list. So it is called as Supreme Legislative Institution. And the second important function is nation in miniature. Why it is called as nation in miniature? If you see the composition of the Parliament, who are present? It contains different linguistic groups. It also contains different tribal groups. And if you see the whole composition of the Parliament, it contains different representations of the people. So it is a best representation of the entire nation. So it is called as nation in miniature. And the third important function is executive. So why executive function? If you see the ministers, these ministers, they are drawn from the Parliament, that is legislature. So it means if at all you are not the member of the Parliament, then you will not become a minister. But there is one exception. So what is that exception? So if I am not the member of Parliament, then also I can become the minister. But there is one condition. Within 6 months of the time, I should be the member of Parliament. That is either the member of Lok Sabha or member of Rajya Sabha, either through the election or by the nomination. So if at all I will not become the member of the Parliament within 6 months, then I will cease to be the minister. So because of this, Parliament is called as executive function. And the next one is principal source of information. Principal source of information. Why it is called as principal source of information? Because if you want to know about any statistics or any data regarding the funds which are unspent for the scheduled caste or the scheduled tribes, there are different mechanisms like the question hour is there, like the discussions is there, motions, resolutions, every authentic information which is available to the nation. So who makes the information available? That is Indian Parliament. So it is a beautiful source of information. And the next important function is financial role. So when you're talking about the financial role, there is a budget, correct? So whenever the budget is passed, it talks about the money to be spent for the various schemes, etc. in the further year. And the next important one is the constitutional role. Why there is a constitutional role? So if you are talking about the amendment of the constitution, state legislatures do not have the power to amend the constitution. The power to amend the constitution is only vested with the parliament, mainly to make our people, that is Indian citizens, mainly our Indian constitution to be the reflective of the changing aspirations of the people of the country. As we know, the people's needs and aspiration will change in the future. So according to them, they must be reflective in our constitution. So there is a need of amendment of the constitution. So these amendments are made by only parliament but not with the state legislature. So if you sum up this, what are the functions of the parliament? The first one is supreme legislative institution. Second one is nation in miniature, executive function, principal source of information, financial role, and also the constitutional role. So these are some of the important functions of the parliament. And let us go into the topic. Let us see what is written in our Lakshmikant. So if you see the first slide, what it says. The parliament is the legislative organ of the union government. And from this legislative organ, we are going to draw executive as well. And it occupies a preeminent and a central position in the Indian democratic political system, mainly due to adoption of the parliamentary form of government. Whenever we are talking about the form of the government which is present in India, that is a parliamentary form of government. So what are the important features? The feature is bicameralism. That means presence of the two houses. Lower house is present and also the upper house is present. Lower house is also called as Lok Sabha. Upper house is also called as Rajya Sabha. So if you see the articles 79 to Article 122, they are present in the Part 5 of the Indian Constitution that deal with the different provisions of the Parliament. They include organization, composition, duration, officers, procedures, privileges, powers, and so on. So these are the articles that are very important. From Article 79 to the Article 122 of the Indian Constitution, they are present in the Part 5 and they deal with this Parliament. So let us see the organization and the composition in this lecture. So if you see the organization of the Parliament, under the Constitution, Parliament of India constitutes only 3 parts. So what are the parts that are present in the Parliament of India? That is 3 important parts according to Article 79 of Indian Constitution. Those 3 important parts are, the first one is President, second one is the Council of States, and the third one is the House of People. Council of States is also called as Rajya Sabha or Upper House, and House of the People is also called as Lok Sabha or Lower House. And if you see in 1954, the Hindi names, they are Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. They were adopted by the Council of the States and the House of the People respectively. So that means the Council of States is also called as Rajya Sabha and the House of the People also called as the Lok Sabha. So if you see the other names of the Rajya Sabha, they are Upper House. It is also called as Second Chamber. It is also called as the House of Elders. And if you see the Lok Sabha, it is a lower house, first chamber, or the popular house. So if you see the position of the President of India, This President of India is not the member of either house of the parliament. He is not the member of the lower house. He is also not the member of the upper house as well. But he is the integral part of the parliament. Why? Because if you see the process of the bill, so there is a house 1 and there is a house 2. So whenever the bill which is introduced in the first house, debate, discussion and voting will happen. And if this bill is passed in the house 1, it is sent to the house 2. And again in the house 2 also debate, discussion and the voting will happen. So after the voting, if the bill is passed, then this is sent to the President of India. Why? If at all President of India is not giving his assent or not signing on that bill will never become an act. So if at all bill is signed by the President, then only that bill becomes an act. So if you see here, why President is the integral part of the parliament. So this is mainly because whenever the bill which is passed by both the house of the parliament, that is Lok Sabha and also the Rajya Sabha, and they cannot become the law without the President assent. President assent which is compulsory and mandatory to make bill to a law. So because of this, President is the integral part of the parliament. And the next one is, he also performs certain functions related to the proceedings of the parliament. For example, he can summon and also prorogue both the houses, and he can also dissolve the Lok Sabha, and he can also address both the houses and issues ordinances when they are not in the section. That means according to the article 123, it talks about the power of the President to make ordinances when those houses are not in session. So in this way, President also take part in the proceedings of the parliament. And if you see the composition of the two houses, let us see the first one, composition of the Rajya Sabha. If you see the maximum strength of the Rajya Sabha, it is fixed, that is 250. So out of this 250, there will be 238 they are elected, and again the 12 they are nominated. Who nominates here? That is President of India. So out of this 238 elected people, they are 229, they represent the states, and the remaining will represent the union territories. So at present we have 245 members. So out of these 245 members, there are 12 nominated members are present. And how many are remaining? That is 233 are present. Correct? So out of this 233 elected people, 229 they are from the states, and remaining 4 they from the union territories, and remaining 12 they are nominated by the President of India. So if you see which schedule of the constitution talks about the allocation of the seats in the Rajya Sabha, this is very important prelims fact. That is the 4th schedule of the constitution. The 4th schedule of the constitution that deals with the allocation of the seats in the Rajya Sabha to the states as well as the union territories. So let us see the representation of the states. Here the representatives from the states, mainly in the Rajya Sabha, they are elected by the members of the state legislative assemblies. That means the Vidhan Sabhas which are present in the states, and also Vidhan Sabhas which are present in the union territories, for example Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir. So in these areas the legislative assemblies are present. So in these legislative assemblies, the members who are elected, they will elected these members to the Rajya Sabha. That means the election is held accordance with the system of the proportional representation by the means of the single transferable vote. Mainly, if you see the seats which are allocated in the Rajya Sabha, they are based on the population. For example, if you take the state 1, state 2, state 3 here. So the state 1 and the state 2 have the more population than compared to the state 3. So the representation from the state 1 and the state 2 will be more in the Rajya Sabha than compared to that of the state 3. So because of this, the number of the representative varies from one state to another state, because the states are allocated in the Rajya Sabha mainly based on the population of that state. And if you see the representation of the union territories, the representatives of each union territory in the Rajya Sabha, they are again indirectly elected mainly by the system, that is a proportional representation by the single transferable vote. and only 3 union territories have the representation in the Rajya Sabha, because these union territories have the Vidhan Sabha or the state legislative assemblies. So, if you see the Vidhan Sabhas of these union territories, they are present only for the 3, which are the 3: Delhi, Puducherry and the Jammu and Kashmir. So, because of these Vidhan Sabhas which are present in these union territories, they have the representation in the Rajya Sabha. Let us see about the nominated members. There are about 12 members which are nominated, who are nominated by the President of India to the Rajya Sabha, mainly who have the special knowledge regarding 4 important things. The first one is art, second one is literature, third one is science, and the fourth one is social service, who have the knowledge and the practical experience in art, literature, science and the social service. So this is about the composition of the Rajya Sabha. So let us see the second house, that is composition of the Lok Sabha. The maximum strength of this Lok Sabha, which is fixed at 552, and out of this 552, there are 530, they are the representatives from the state, and the next 20 members, they are the representatives from the union territories, and the remaining 2 are nominated by the President of India. They are normally the Anglo-Indian community. So let us see, at present Lok Sabha has 545 members. So out of these 545 members, 530 are the representatives from the states, and the remaining 13 members, they are from the union territories, and the 2 are from the Anglo-Indian members. So this time the composition of the Lok Sabha will be very important for the prelims point of view, because there is a recent current affairs regarding the Anglo-Indian community. There is no nomination of this Anglo-Indian communities from this year. So because of this will be very important for the upcoming prelims. So please prepare with this. Okay. So let us see further. So if you see the representation of the states, the representation of the states in the Lok Sabha, they are directly elected by the people. So when we talked about the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, they are indirectly elected, and these people, that is the Lok Sabha people, they are directly elected by the people from the territorial constituencies in the states. So if you see the elections of these members of the Lok Sabha, they are based on the universal adult franchise. So what is the meaning of this universal adult franchise? That means every Indian citizen who is above 18 years of age, they have the right to vote. But one condition, who is not disqualified under the provisions of the Constitution. So if at all they are not disqualified, but they have the age more than the 18 years of age, they have the right to vote in such elections. And if you see the voting age, that is reduced from the 21 years to the 18 years, mainly by the 61 Constitutional Amendment Act of 1988. So this is again one important prelims fact here. So you have to remember the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act of 1988. It reduced the voting age from 21 years to 18 years. And let us see the next one, representation of the union territories. Here the Constitution has empowered the Parliament to prescribe the manner of choosing the representatives of the union territories in the Lok Sabha. So who have the power? That is power vested with the Parliament. Again, it is important prelims fact. So regarding the representation of the union territories in the Lok Sabha, Parliament has the power mainly to prescribe the manner of the choosing the representatives of the union territories in the Lok Sabha. And next one is, accordingly, Parliament has enacted one important law, that is Union Territories Direct Election to the House of People People Act of 1965. So what is this act? That is Union Territories Direct Election to the House of People's Act of 1965. So by this act, what happened? The members of this Lok Sabha from the Union Territories are chosen by the direct elections. So this act is very important whenever you are writing the mains answer. So when you are writing any answer regarding the representation of the Union Territories to the Lok Sabha, you have to write this act. Because if you see, our Constitution only empowered the Parliament regarding prescribe any manner of choosing the members from the Union territories to the Lok Sabha. So because of that power, Parliament enacted one important act, that is Union Territories Direct Election to the House of the People Act of 1965. Through this act, these people, that is the members of the Lok Sabha from the Union Territories, are chosen mainly through the direct elections. And let us see about the nominated members. Normally, President can nominate the 2 members from the Anglo-Indian community if that community is not properly or adequately represented in the Lok Sabha. But if you see originally, this provision will operate till 1960, but it is again extended till 2020 by the 95th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2009. So this is expired, so there is no provision of nomination of the Anglo-Indian community to the Lok Sabha. So because of this, this is very important for the prelims point of view. And let us see the system of elections to the Lok Sabha. So if you see, there is a difference between the system of elections to the Rajya Sabha and also the Lok Sabha. So this Rajya Sabha, the elections are indirectly elected by the people, mainly through the state legislative assemblies or the Vidhan Sabhas. And if you see the system of elections to the Lok Sabha, these Lok Sabha members, they are directly elected by the people. So the system of the election which is very much different. So let us see the system of elections to the Lok Sabha. The various aspects which are related to the system of the elections to the Lok Sabha are, the first one we have to know about the territorial constituencies. Why territorial constituencies? Because for the purpose of the holding the direct elections to the Lok Sabha, each state is divided into territorial constituencies, and this respect the constitution makes the following 2 provisions. So if you want to see here we have the different states are present. So in these different state, we are dividing this state into the different parts, and each part is called as one territorial constituency. So under this territorial constituency, these people will elect one representative. Okay. So let us see the constitution, what is the following provisions that are given by the constituents. The first one is, each state is allocated the number of the seats in the Lok Sabha in such manner that the ratio between the number and its population is same for all the states. So if you see, in the Lok Sabha there are 545 seats. Out of this 545, they are elected and they are nominated. And under this elected, they are elected from the states and also the union territories. Correct? So these number of the states which are present in the Lok Sabha, they are in such a manner that the ratio between the number and its population is same to all the states. And this provision does not apply to the states which are having the population which is less than 6 millions. So this is again important regarding the prelims point of view. And again, each state which is divided to territorial constituencies in such a manner that the ratio between the population of each constituency and the number of the seats which are allocated to it is the same throughout the states. So these are the 2 important things regarding the territorial constituencies. So what we can sum up? We can say the constitution ensures that there is uniformity that is present in the representation, mainly in the 2 aspects. The first one is between the different states and also between the different constituencies which are present within the states. So there is a uniformity that is present. And if you see the readjustment after each census, so when these census are taken place, so for every 10 years there will be the census, correct? So after every census, the readjustment is to be made regarding the allocation of the seats in the Lok Sabha to the states. Why? Because they are based on the population, correct? So then here, if you see here, what it is said that the ratio between the number which is given and also its population is same for all the states. So it is based on the population. That means after every census, the population will be changed, correct? So based on that census, there should be the change regarding the allocation of the seats in the Lok Sabha to that state. And we also go for the division of each state into territorial constituencies as well. So if you see, the parliament is empowered to determine the authority and the manner in which it is to be made. That means how, in which manner there should be the division should be made in the territorial constituencies, and also how can the number of the seats can be allocated in the Lok Sabha regarding that states. So here also it is empowered to the Parliament of India. So this power which is utilized by the Parliament, and the Parliament have enacted Delimitation Commission Acts in 1952, 1962, 1972, 2002. That means every year we have the census in the first, that is 1961 we have the census. So later on 1962 Delimitation Commission was present, and 1971 we got the census, correct. In 1972 again Delimitation Commission Act was formed. So in this way Parliament has enacted the Delimitation Commission Acts in 1952, 1962, 1972 and also 2002. So if you see one important constitutional amendment act, that is 42nd Amendment Act of 1976, it mainly froze the allocation of the seats in the Lok Sabha to the states and the division of each state into the territorial constituencies till the year 2000 at the 1971 level. So this 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976, what it said, there should not be the division or the allocation of the seats, there should not be the alteration till 2000, and it should be on the 1971 basis. And the next one is, this ban on the readjustment was extended another further 25 years by the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act. And if you see the next one, this 84th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2001 also said that, and it should be based on the population figures of 1991 census. And later on again another Constitutional Amendment Act came into picture, that is 87th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2003. So it said that it should be based on the 2001 census but not on the 1991 census. So however, it can be done without altering the number of the seats allocated to each state in the Lok Sabha as well. So this is about the thing. So let us see the reservation for the seats for the SCs and the STs. Though the constitution has abandoned the system of the communal representation, it provides for the reservation of the seats mainly for the SCs and the STs in the Lok Sabha, mainly based on the population ratios. That is, based on the population ratios, we can reserve some seats for the SCs and also the STs. And if you see, originally the reservation was to operate for the 10 years, that is up to 1960. But it has been extended continuously since then by 10 years each time. So what happened now? 95th Amendment Act of 2009. So it was made, and it said that this reservation is to last until 2020. And again, if you see, according to the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act, it said that there should be the refixing of the reservation of the seats for this SCs and the STs based on the population figures of 1991 census. So again, another Constitutional Amendment Act came into picture, that is 87th Constitutional Amendment Act. It said that no, it should be on the basis of 2001, not on the 1991 census. So this is about some of the introduction and also some important topic regarding the composition of the Parliament. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to my channel. Please do like, share and comment my videos. For the notes of this lecture, please refer your Lakshmikant book. Thank you.